The story that I was really working through in the car was the story that I felt uncared for. Like, that's the thing that can come up for me often, in my own sort of core wound stories, is the story of care. And so I was feeling not cared for, feeling like I was nobody's priority. And through this comedy of other errors, each person came through and was like, I'm prioritizing you in this moment. All this care you think is lacking is actually the entire world conspiring for your care, Sonya.
It can be hard in the midst of so much violence, oppression, and despair to believe in a just, loving, and compassionate world. I'm also clear that if ever we need a collective hold of that possibility, it is now. Mundane Miracles with Sonya Renee Taylor is a podcast where I share stories, reflections, anecdotes, and epiphanies from my daily existence in an effort to collect evidence that life is truly loving and kind, full of intention, guiding us all toward greater love, grace, and compassion, proving that if we learn to look and listen, we will hear and see that life is indeed unfolding for our highest good. Join me as I share evidence that life is happening on purpose with radical love in service of our highest good, even when it sucks, especially when it sucks.
When I let my grief take up all the space of 1,000 oceans that were washing over me every day, I have to say, I felt joy. I felt joy, oh boy. I felt unexpected, unusual, surprising waves of joy.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Mundane Miracles with Sonya Renee Taylor, the podcast where we collect evidence that life is happening on purpose, in radical self-love, in service of our highest good, even when it sucks. Especially when it sucks. I am glad to be back with you all. I am sorry. I feel like my lighting situation isn't what I want it to be. Here's what I want you to know. Every day, I'm just in here trying to figure it out, y'all. I'm not your tech girl. I just be in here trying to figure it out. I really do. But I'm going to give myself a little bit more light and see if that helps. Ding. I got a little ring light. Y'all, this really isn't. I don't know nothing about any of this stuff. So this really is just me winging it, trying to make it happen. As you all may know, we have we are in Mercury retrograde. We're 2 days in. And when I tell you that it's been giving me playing in my face immediately. My microphone cord broke today as I went to go record. My laptop wouldn't come on for 3 days. It's a whole situation. And that's okay. We're going to make it work, this whole situation. As you can see, I'm coming from the gym. It has been a wild ride. Since the last time I talked to you all, this is how it went. We were in my birthday season. Shout out to Sagittarians. It is Sagittarius season. I have some deep loves who are awesome Saggies. Shout out to Princess Hemphill, who just celebrated a birthday. Shout out to Kisarangi Cameron, my ABFF, my Aotearoa best friend forever. Shout out to Katarina Norden, my deep, deep love in Austria. If you notice, all my Sagittarian friends are in some other part of the world because Sagittarius is be out here exploring. But in Scorpio season, I'm going to take you back a few days. I had such a full-on birthday season, y'all. Literally, as soon as the sun went into Scorpio, and I feel like I said this on one of the podcasts, it was like, ta-da! Bring on the light. It was delightful. And I had a birthday party on a Friday. I had a memorial to go to for my beloved friend Jill Bates Moore in Atlanta on a Saturday. Then I came back on a Sunday. Me and my roommate threw a housewarming party for our new space. And then on Monday, I took my friends who flew in and got them off to their next destinations. And then on Tuesday, I went to the Andre 3000 concert. It was a birthday gift to me from my beloved Omi Sade, Bernie Scott of Black Girl's Guide to Menopause. If you don't know it, get it, put it in your life. That team is just doing brilliant work right now. And then on Wednesday morning at 6:59 a.m., I took a flight to California where I got to go love up on my lifey, Denise Jolly, and my loved ones, Hillary Hayes and Maureen Benson, and just got to love up on my peoples. I was there for 2 days, less than 48 hours, and then I got on a plane. I went to New York. I was in New York for another 48 hours, and then I got on a plane on Monday, that following Monday, and flew to Costa Rica, where I spent the last week, and I just got back home yesterday. So as you can see, it's been a whirlwind, and so much has happened in that time, and so much has clarified itself in ways that have been really beautiful. And so today I want to talk about what I'm calling rubber band time. And one of the things that I've been practicing for a while is in this work of collecting evidence that life is happening on purpose, right? That whatever is going on, it's not accidental. And when I do that, when I lean into that perspective that whatever's going on is not accidental, it means that I get to shift perception about what it is that's occurring. And one of the places where I have to practice this the most often is when I'm taking flights. It's one of the most, it's a very mundane aspect of my life. I take a lot of flights. I have a Venus in the 12th house in Sagittarius, which is long distance travel. The 12th house in astrology represents long distance travel for spiritual reasons. It's going to faraway lands for spiritual purposes. And usually when I'm going to faraway lands these days, it's because there's spiritual work there for me to do. And the house of travel anyway is in that location, right? Or Sagittarius, which is a particular kind of wanderlust, a particular kind of global curiosity that takes you, the fire that moves, is there in that location of spiritual travel in my birth chart. And so I do a lot of long distance travel. I do a lot of travel for spiritual reasons, and I be on planes a lot. And before then, I've always done a lot of travel for work. My 9th house, which is long distance travel for work, or just long distance travel that doesn't have any particular reason behind it. That location in my chart is in Virgo and in the 9th house. And the ruler of Virgo is Mercury. And Mercury is conjunct my sun in the 11th house. So when I'm traveling for work, for the communities that I'm involved in. Also, long distance travel. So my life has always been marked with long distance travel. And so planes are a regular part of my life. I'm always on a plane. And part of what I've had to learn, practice, be with is like, can I be on a plane in a different way than I have in the past? I used to miss flights on the regs. I would have the most just stressful travel experiences. I'd be like, running, begging somebody to let me on the plane, just like, I'm going to be late, I missed the flight. And it would have me in such upset. And one of the most recent times that happened actually was in 2022. I was traveling to Morocco. And I was traveling to Morocco for a writer's retreat. And coming back from that, and there's an episode about that writer's retreat and some really beautiful mundane miracles that occurred in that space, which you all will get a chance to hear about at a different point. But I was leaving that writer's retreat and had a layover in Spain, in Madrid. And I was sitting, and I had access to the lounge that day, and I was kicking it, chilling. Your girl was chilling in the lounge. And I was like, okay, my flight is at 8 o'clock, is what I thought. Now, the problem is those international flights often put the times in military time, or what I know as military time. So there's 12, right, o'clock, and then there's 13 o'clock and 14 o'clock and 15 o'clock. And somewhere in my brain, I thought the flight was at 5 o'clock, because that's what I made 15 o'clock mean. Flight was not at 5 o'clock. And I'm in the lounge chilling. This was one of them lounges that had the good food, y'all. Like, the buffet was buffeting, and I ate. And, and they had like little cubby booths. I felt like I had like particular kind of privacy, and it was the bomb. And a whole bunch of people came into the lounge, and then a whole bunch of people left. And there was a moment where I was just like, it feels like everybody's gone in a way that something feels off. Like this shouldn't be so empty. And I went up, and asked what time it was. It was sometime that when I pulled out my boarding pass, I had realized was a cool 50 minutes since my flight had taken off. And I was so upset. I was just like, what? And, I go to the agent and I'm like, here's what happened. And they're like, right, well. And it was one of these days where it was a Pluto transit. Let me be clear. It was a Pluto transit. And what you should know about Pluto, which rules Scorpio, is its energies are very, very, very big in my existence. And what's funny is Mars also rules Scorpio. I have far less Mars energy. I used to, at my younger years, I had way more Mars energy. I would say basically anything past 35, I got real Plutonian. Pluto vibes kicked in hard. And so Pluto is the planet of deep transformation. Ultimately, it's destroys things, transforms things inalterably. Like you can't go back. Once it has been changed, it's changed permanently. I like to talk about Pluto as the planet concerned with power. And ultimately, I relate to the stars as all of them as benefic. And part of the reason I do that is because our assessment of what's good and bad isn't accurate in the spiritual realm, right? In the spiritual realm, life is neutral and experiences are experiences. And we may have a perspective about what those experiences mean. We may have a perspective about whether we like them or don't like them, but they are just what they are. And so what we call awful is not necessarily awful in the spiritual realm. It just is. But I believe that the just is always for something that ultimately we would call good. And because here's my premise, all of life is love, right? And all of life is asking to remember itself as love. And so love is the ultimate good thing. Whatever it takes for us to remember we are love, for life to remember its love, is just fine. As long, it's one of those questions of like, does the ends justify the means? In the cosmic sense, yes. Whatever it requires for you to remember your love, the universe is like, fine, great, sure, yep, we'll do that. Because absolutely, the ends justify the means. If it takes whatever it takes for you to remember you are love, it's worth it. Anyway, that's my little tangent of, so I believe that all the planets have characteristics that are ultimately designed to help us remember some aspect of our most loving selves, ourselves as love. And so Pluto does that by attuning us to our power. But in order to attune us to our most authentic power, right, that power that is most aligned with love, that manifests itself as love, then it must show you everything that is not that. You have to see everything that is not that, which means you have to see your shadow. You have to see the crap underneath. You have to see the ego-driven power plays. You have to see the deep fears. Because guess what? Once you confront all of those things, what are you? More powerful, more authentically powerful in the truth of power, which is love. Hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, and so it was a Pluto transit. And in this Pluto transit, I am talking to this gate agent, and the gate agent is like, sorry, you're not getting out here today. It's a wrap for you. I'm trying all kinds of angles. I'm trying to get on all these other things. It's not happening, and it's going to be expensive, right? So I'm like, okay. I am like, all right, just suck it up, buttercup, deal with it. So I get a flight. It's like 7:30 in the morning. I was flying business class. It was like, you won't be flying business class now if you want to get home. So I get a hotel that I have to pay for out of pocket. Like this is just racked up money. Now, what is true is I went to a vegan restaurant somewhere in Madrid that had the best vegan calamari I've ever eaten in my life. To this day, I want to know how they did it. It was fantastic. I go the next morning. I believe my flight was canceled. This was a Mercury square Pluto transit is what was happening. Mercury, the planet of communications. So then I had to get on a different flight because the morning flight ends up canceled. I call the gate agent again It was clear it was his first day at work. He had never had this job before. When I tell you that he put me on hold 3 times for like 25 minutes each time. Well, I tell you that it was the most cumbersome, frustrating. Like by the end, I was just like, why? And here's how Pluto's working, right? It's like, oh, your fear that you're not going to get home. Oh, what's the worst that this could be? Right? This is my personal hell, is to just be trapped in some sort of mundanity on repeat forever with incompetence. Absolute hell. It would be like somebody asking me to stand in the DMV and fill out paperwork and interact with the customer service rep there, who continues to send me back and tell me that some I wasn't dotted correctly on the form, but for eternity. That's Sonya's personal hell. I was in my personal hell that day. I must have been a total 90 minutes on the phone with him. Every time he came back, there was something he had done wrong that he had to go back and fix. By the time I was done with him, I was in full on tears. And I was like, why must everything be so hard? I just want to go home. By the time he was finished, I was in full on activation and trigger with every story I have ever had about how I'm never going to have home and it's always going to be so hard and life just wants me to suffer. It was a terrible time. And eventually I did get home, and it did cost me some extra money. And I was able to see how big the story was, right? I was able to be like, oh, yes, this was an unpleasant experience, but we took it to, you ain't never gonna have home and life is conspiring for your suffering, Sonya. Oh, that story is definitely in the way of my power. That story definitely doesn't help me remember I am love. And so it was after that incident that I was like, I gotta find a different way to be with travel and the inconveniences that happen in travel that are inevitable. And so I said to myself, we're going to try on a different way of being. We're going to try on that if life is indeed unfolding on purpose and in service of my highest good, then if I miss a flight, if a flight is delayed, if a travel itinerary changes, then it must be on purpose and in service of my highest good. There must be a reason that life is doing that. And if I cannot be certain about why life is doing that at that moment, then my job is to just lean into the trust that at some point it will be revealed to me if I need to know. And so I started practicing with that as the energy. I started moving with that as how I would meet flights. But the other thing that I started doing was, because I'm a person who historically has been really chronically late. I was really bad about it up until one of the former editors of Everyday Feminism. I don't know if you all remember that website. It might still be around. Everyday Feminism was run by a guy named Derek and a woman named Sandra Kim. And Derek built the Body Is Not an Apologies website. And Everyday Feminism was incredibly helpful in our early years of starting the digital media platform. And one time I had a meeting with Derek, and he said, every meeting we've had so far, Sonya, you've been late, and it really disrespects my time, and it makes me feel not valued. And I mean, my God, I am a Cancer moon. Which means I'm deeply sensitive, and the only thing I want, my little heart's desire, is to make sure that people feel valued and nurtured and cared for. And so as soon as he said he didn't feel valued by me, that kicked me into gear. And I am far less late than I used to be, although sometimes I am still late. But when I'm running late, what I do now is I ask life to slow time down. Is it possible, please, to slow time down so that I can make this flight? So these are the things I've been practicing: asking to slow time down and trusting that if I miss the flight, it's because I need to, or if the things are delayed, whatever it is that's happening, it's on purpose. So one of the first times that I practiced this, I was flying out of San Francisco. I was leaving from visiting my then girlfriend, and I got to the airport and my flight had been canceled. Oh, well, first it was delayed. It hadn't been canceled yet. It was delayed. And it was nighttime. It was like 11 o'clock. The flight was supposed to leave maybe at 10 or something like that. I get to the airport at 9:30. There's no flight. It's delayed now till 10:30. You know, I've been flying for most of my adult life, and so I know how the patterns work. If you get too late on a nighttime flight, oftentimes the pilot will be over hours, and then they'll be like, sorry, we can't take you tonight. Or we'll try to find another pilot. Things that generally don't happen, and then you're in a hotel for the night. And so it was delayed till 10:30, and then it got delayed till 11:30, and I was like, I don't trust this flight is leaving. And I had a connecting flight, so I was like flying from, I don't remember where I was going, y'all. There's way too many flights since then. But I do know that I had a connecting flight. And so I went up to the guy and I was like, hey, do you think this flight is leaving here tonight? And he's like, you know, we're not sure, maybe, da 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 da. And I was like, actually, is it possible? I would rather fly out tomorrow morning. Is it possible to fly out tomorrow morning? And he's like, yeah, sure. Or not sure, let me check. And so he goes in the computer and types in all the things. And then I'm like, is it possible? I said, I'm on a connecting flight. Can I get a direct flight in the morning? And he was like, well, let's see. And he's working his magic, and he was very friendly and whatever else. And one of the things that I'm practicing when I do this is like keeping my energy really high, really trusting, like really not just like saying it, but really trying to be in the like, I can trust that this is happening, right? That this is in service of my highest good. And that every person I'm interacting with, all parties involved in the situation, are also operating in service of my highest good. I can trust that. And so just bringing that energy to the interaction makes people want to help you, y'all. Hot tip for the day. People want to help you when they feel like you believe that they are trying to help you. Because guess what feels good? Being helpful and being considered helpful. All of that feels good. So when we operate with people from the belief that that's the intent they're holding, they begin to respond like that's the intent they're holding, even if they weren't sure that's what they were doing in the beginning. This is how we impact each other. So anyway, old boy is happily trying to work it out for me. I'm upbeat. I'm happy. You know, my flight's been delayed twice now. It's 11 o'clock. And he works it out. And I call my girlfriend and I'm like, I think I might be able to come back and crawl in bed with you, which is delightful. And it's like, oh, right. I don't have to be on an uncomfortable red eye, because now I'm going to sleep in the bed with my boo. And then I'm going to get up in the morning and get on a flight that's now a direct flight. Chef's kiss. He works it out. That's exactly how the night goes. I get to take an Uber right back, go to sleep with my boo. I still had to wake up early, but that's fine, because it was either wake up early or sleep on a plane, and then take a direct flight, which actually meant that I could sleep on the plane because I could get uninterrupted sleep on the plane rather than having to get off and then get on another flight. It was one of the first times where I was like, oh, this thing, look at this. This kind of works. I think maybe this works a little bit. So I was super happy. And ever since then, I've been practicing it. And every once and again, I get an opportunity to like really see it at play. A few months ago during the summer, I was in Los Angeles. And there are lots of beautiful serendipitous things that occurred on that trip. But I was with a friend and she dropped me off. She lived in the mountains, Topanga Canyon. And she took me into town, and I was going to take an Uber. She had an appointment, so she couldn't take me to the airport. So I was taking Uber from the little town into the city. I leave with more than enough time. I call the Uber. The Uber's like, great, I'll be there in 15 minutes. And then the time starts going up. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I'll be there in 45 minutes. The Uber that was supposed to be there in 15 minutes takes 45 minutes to arrive. And he's like, I'm so sorry. It's all the traffic. And this is definitely one of those days where I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, and I feel like there was something of relative importance that I was going to do. And I can't remember exactly what it was now. But whatever it was, it felt like it was of relative importance that I really felt like I kind of needed to make this flight. So I am in the car. And then, of course, we're hitting traffic. I'm just like, oh. And then I'm like, okay, Sonya, you have a practice for this. And I'm like, okay, I do have a practice for this. I have a practice for this. All right, are we going to step it? Okay, what is this practice? First, I trust that if I'm to make this flight, I will make this flight. I also would like to make this flight. So I am asking for time to stretch itself so that I can make this flight. So let's say the flight was at 4:25. and the guy comes to get me. I'm checked in online, right? And I don't have a bag to check. I just have a carry-on. So I check in online. I've got, yeah, I was just in LA for a night. That's exactly what it was. It was like, oh, I'm just in LA for a night. And I'd flown in from the Bay. I'd flown in from the Bay and I was flying back to the Bay. But I had a bunch of stuff to do. So I needed it to like go. So it's 4:25. The plane is taking off. I call the car service at 2:15. He comes to pick me up at 3 o'clock. My flight leaves at 4:25. I'm in Los Angeles trying to get to LAX from Topanga Canyon. And when I tell you every bit of construction, slow moving, everything that could have unfolded was unfolding. And I'm in the car and I'm like, we're going to trust. And then I just would breathe into it. I could feel the anxiety starting to like bubble up. And then I would just take a deep breath and be like, I trust that this is unfolding in service of my highest good. And I'm asking time to slow down. And then I would start looking at the clock on his car. And I would look at the clock and it was 3 o'clock and we're sitting in traffic. But time is moving hella slow. It was like 3:10. Then it was 3:20. But it felt like it was taking a long time for those things to uncover. He pulls me up to the airport at 4 o'clock. He pulls me up to the airport at 4 o'clock, y'all, for a 4:25 flight. A 4:25 flight. Oh my gosh, this was delightful. I get to the gate, or to the TSA. There's no one there. It's completely empty, except for one person who's in front of me. I go through, and then the people call my name. It's Sonya Renee Taylor in the thing. And I'm like, right? And so I'm like, okay, I guess I gotta run. So, but I can only run so much. You know, like, I mean, I can run more than I used to be able to run, but I'm still not your running girl. So I'm a light trot. I also have like some significant pain in my knee. And so I'm like, yeah, this is a light trot. So I'm lightly trotting. It's 4:10. Right? So I got 5 minutes before they close the gate and don't let me on the plane. It's like Moses had parted the Red Sea for me to make this flight. It was bananas. And I get there and I'm trotting onto the plane and I'm like, it's me. And they're like, are you Sonya? Are you Sonya Renee Taylor? And I say, yes, I am. And as I go to give the woman my ticket to get on the plane, this other woman is standing there and she's like, and we love you so much. Thank you for all you do. And she's applauding me as I make it to the plane. It was such a delightful, sweet, bananas moment where literally, had any of that timing been different, I would have missed the flight. This woman, who obviously was inspired by my work, would have not had the opportunity to meet me in that moment, to cheer me on as I ran to the flight. Me getting that piece of recognition felt so sweet, and like just a reminder that I was indeed on the path I was meant to be on. It was so clear that it was unfolding on purpose and in service of my highest good. And you know, again, part of what I think I'm always offering in these stories is you could decide that's completely not true. You know, I could be making all of that up. Like, none of this is on purpose and it's not in service of your highest good. Cool. My question to you is, does that perspective give you access to peace, power, pleasure, joy, or ease? Because if it doesn't, is it serving you? And I find that believing that life is happening on purpose and in service of my highest good serves me. It serves me better than all the other stories. And so I'm like, word, I'm going to stick with this version, this particular perspective, because it's a far more pleasant perspective than its alternatives. Hey, you, hey, you, hey, you, hey, you, hey, you, hey, you, hey, you. So that was just this really great opportunity where I saw that. And then I got to have it happen again just the other day as I was leaving Costa Rica and returning to the US. It happened on the way out, and then it happened on the way back. So on the way out, leaving New York City, heading to the airport to leave for Costa Rica. It's an early morning flight. Our flight's at 8 a.m. out of Newark. So needless to say, we are up at the butt crack of dawn. We're in the car at 5:30 on our way to the airport. Yeah, our flight was like 8:30. So we're like, great, get to the airport by 6:30. Cool, make our flight. We're leaving at 5:30. And I'm not in a good way. I am not having an easeful time accessing stories that help me have peace, power, joy, pleasure, or ease. At the time, I'm really in a little woe is me energy on my way to the airport. I'm on this journey with my spiritual husband, Teku, who I'm sure you all will hear more about as we hear in this podcast. And I'm sure he'll come up more. So he and I are on our way to Costa Rica together, and we're in the car. I think he reaches over to hold my hand, which is sweet. And I was having a rough morning, and I had been holding my phone in my hand prior to him reaching over to hold my hand. So then I just put the phone in my lap. We leave and the tunnel was closed, so the tunnel is open now, but it's a bit backed up. And then there's an accident, and so now on the other side of the tunnel, it's backed up some more. And, I'm starting to be like, I don't know if we're gonna make this flight. And then I'm like, okay. But I'm having a much harder time this time accessing it's on purpose and in service of my highest good, because I just want to go to Costa Rica. I just want to get to someplace that's like sunny and tropical and the hot springs there and just stop all the things that are unfolding, because I've been moving through a lot of energy. And so I'm trying to muster up it's happening on purpose and in service of my highest good. And I'm struggling in Struggleville. But I do appreciate, like, I'm having my hand held, and that's sweet. And we get to the exit for the airport, and then we're just like sitting in this like snail's pace of traffic through the airport to get to our terminal. Slow. But we get there. Actually, our flight was at 8:15. We get there, it's like 6:20. And I'm like, I don't know if they're going to let us do it, but okay. So we pull up, we get out of the car. I go get in the line to check in, and luckily I have Premier or whatever, so I can get in the quicker line. I get in the line. I put my credit card in the machine to pull up my confirmation, and I realize I don't have my phone. My phone is in the car that I just left. The Uber that I just got out of. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So now but I don't have another phone, and Teku, who I'm traveling with, is not from the US and does not have a US phone number. Only has like Wi-Fi and international calling, and not even international calling. So there's no way to make a phone call. Well, there's not even a person to call, because I came from an Uber. I don't have the number for the Uber. I would need the Uber app. He doesn't have an Uber app. I don't have my account information on me. All right, so now we're like trying to figure it out. We managed to get checked into the flight. So cool, they take our bags. We're all right with that. I stop. I open up my laptop after we check in. I go on to Uber app from my laptop. I talk to a chat person. The chat person is able to identify the guy who just took off and get in touch with him. This all is taking some time, right? So flight leaves at 8:15. It's probably 6:45 or something like that. Gets in touch with the guy driving the car. Guy agrees to come back to the airport. He's 20 minutes away, right? So I'm like, if it takes him as long to get back here as it took him to drop us off, I'm not going to have a phone. And now I'm just like making peace. Like, all right, you're not going to have a phone. Like, and at first I can feel the grasping. I can feel the, I want my phone, right? And I'm really like fighting with it. I can feel it. But I'm like, that's not what we're to do right now, Sonya. So I'm like, okay, breathe into it. And Teku is very helpful. Can you slow down, and can you hear what the grandmothers and grandfathers are trying to tell you about what's going on? And so it's just sort of like being like, okay, let's go. So as soon as it probably takes 20 minutes. And I'm like, maybe I need to just have him send the phone to our friend's house where we had been, and I'll just deal with it then. I'll just be in Costa Rica without a phone. And as soon as I said that, he pulls up with my phone. And so great. I have my phone. We go through TSA, and me and Teku split up. I go through pre-check, and he has to go through the regular one. So I'm through pre-check. And on the other side, I'm like, oh, I should transfer some currency into Costa Rican currency. So I go to the little currency converter place, and I'm talking to the guy, and it's moving slow. By this time, remember, international flights, they usually start boarding 45 minutes in advance. So they would be boarding at 7:30. It's 7:30. I'm in the currency line trying to get cash. It's moving slow. Everything's moving slow. I had not asked time to slow down, but it had decided on its own that that's exactly what it was going to do. So it's moving real slow. I get there, I work out the transaction with the guy. I open my wallet and I realize I do not have my credit card. That the credit card that I used to check in when we got there was where? Still inside the machine. My credit card still inside the machine at the check-in counter. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I just feel defeated, just utterly defeated. And so I walk to the gate. Everyone's boarded, right? Plane takes off at 8:15. It's 7:55. And they're like, are you Sonya Taylor? You have to get on the plane. So there are 3 gate agents. There are the 2 taking the tickets, and there's another man at the counter, an older white man. And I'm telling him what happened. And I'm like, I left my credit card up at the thing. Teku's like, what took you so long? I'm like, I lost my credit card. It's at the gate check-in before you go through TSA. And I tell this guy, and he's like, well, he's calling upstairs. Now, while he's calling upstairs, the other 2 agents are like, you have to get on the plane, ma'am. You have to get on the plane. And I'm like, just shut up. You're sitting over here. Like, they don't care about my credit card. So Teku is slowly talking to this gentleman and kind of helping give him, because I think he could just tell I was like fried at this point. I have very little patience left. So this is a great example of I wasn't doing it great, right? This practice that I have, I was doing very imperfectly, but I was still trying to do it. As soon as I get on the plane, I have them check me in. I'm walking the jet bridge. Teku's like, well, I have my card and we'll be fine, whatever. Like, maybe we'll just need to cancel it. Because the guy's like, well, if we get it back, we'll have it in the lost and found here at Newark Airport. I don't live in New York. I don't fly out of Newark. I was like, it's a wrap for that card. If it's there, that's where it's going to stay. Because there's nothing I can do. So as soon as I'm on the jet bridge, I'm like, you know what? All right, I'll just cancel the card and just be without a card in Costa Rica. And as soon as I said it, I see him running down the jet bridge. We're the last people. We're about to step foot onto the plane. And he's like, I got it. And he's waving it like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. He's got the golden ticket. He runs. And it was so clear that he was so happy to have done this for me. And I was so deeply appreciative. I tried to give him some cash to tip him. I had tipped the Uber driver for bringing the card back. And I was trying to tip him, and he was like, no. Just have an amazing time in Costa Rica. I'm so glad I was able to help. And it was just this really sweet moment of life being like, there's help everywhere, Sonya. Right? The story that I was really working through in the car was the story that I just was like, I felt uncared for. Like, that's the thing that can come up for me often, in my own sort of core wound stories, is the story of care. And so I was feeling not cared for, feeling like I was nobody's priority. And through this comedy of other errors, each person came through and was like, I'm prioritizing you in this moment. I'm prioritizing getting your phone back to you. I'm prioritizing getting your credit card back to you. I am prioritizing standing beside you and being a partner in this while you navigate it. All this care you think is lacking is actually the entire world conspiring for your care, Sonya. Everything is caring for you all the time. The currency guy moving slow enough for you to open your wallet and realize your credit card was still up there is caring for you. All of it. It was such a great reminder that it's all just working exactly as it should. And that the only thing that is ours to really do is to try to trust that. To try to trust that it really is trying to unfold exactly the way we want it to. Even if it isn't exactly the way we want it to, it's definitely in service of our highest good. Hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, So on the flight back, I was traveling with cash and the amount in which you have to stop and declare some things. And so I had to go through a totally different way. I've never gone before. Like, I'm in the bowels of the airport. Again, just slow in a way that normally in my past just makes me grumpy. Things aren't moving efficiently. Why isn't this happening faster? And I can get inside of that sort of orientation. And I was so clear that it was like, just do what's in front of you, girl, and stop complaining. And so I'm walking through the bowels of the airport and I'm just, doing it. And again, reminding myself, if you make the flight or you don't make the flight, because at this point there was a connecting flight. And I was in Miami and I was like, I don't want to spend the night in Miami, but if I'm supposed to spend the night in Miami, then I'll spend the night in Miami. All right. So I get through, I'm going through all the pieces and parts and places. And I finally get to the other side of, they give my bags, I have to take it to a person, I got to take it into the bowels. An officer has to fill out a form with me and all this other stuff. We do all of that. And then I finally am on the other side. And as I'm walking to my gate, that's a million miles away because it's Miami Airport, a young person stops me and they say, by any chance are you Sonya Renee Taylor? And I'm like, I am. And they're like, I'm a poet, and, they share that they have a connection with a good friend of mine. They're like, I'm one of Mahogany's kids, Mahogany L. Brown, shout out, Queen of New York, as far as I'm concerned. And they say, can I take a picture of you? My girlfriend, somebody walked off with my phone, and then I had to go to another gate and get it, and I'm on my way back. And my girlfriend loves you, and she's waiting at the gate for me. We take a picture so that they can share it with their girlfriend who has 2-3 copies of The Body's Not an Apology or whatever. And it was clear that, had I not slowed down, had someone not walked off with their phone, we would not have met. There would have been no picture. That moment, and I have no idea what that moment means, other than a moment of just delight for someone who gets to see a picture of someone whose work they appreciate. It could be just as simple as that, right? It could be just as simple as, oh, this will help brighten someone's day. And that's why it's all moving slow, Sonya, so that it can align, so that you can brighten someone's day. Sometimes it's just that simple. It could be something way more profound that I have no idea about. And that's okay. I don't need to know all the ins and outs. I just need to know that it is indeed on purpose, and indeed happening with radical love, and indeed in service of my highest good. And that whether or not it sucks depends on whether or not I'm willing to believe those first 3 things. And when I do, all of a sudden, whatever it was that seemed like it sucks significantly less, or sometimes doesn't suck at all. Anyway, I am glad to be back with you all. Thank you for taking time to listen. As always, I ask that you make it a ritual to be with mundane miracles, to reflect on your own miracles while you are listening, to share, subscribe, leave comments, both on any of the platforms where you listen, on YouTube. I'd love to grow my YouTube channel. I'm going to say that out loud. I think I'd love to do that. And so you all can help by tuning in there and sharing it and commenting and all that good stuff. And also, please join me on Patreon. I share little bonus episodes there. And it really is, Patreon is the place where we get to practice radical new economy. A different way of how it is that we can fund the work that we love in the world without being extractive. It's really powerful and it's fun. And I deeply appreciate all of my Patreon community for making it possible for me to live my values. It's such a gift to get to do. And so I hope you all will join me on Patreon as well, and that you really will make it a ritual of listening, both to mundane miracles here and to the mundane miracles that are unfolding in your life. Sending you much love. Bye.
You think you are dying, but you are being born.
Mundane Miracles with Sonya Renee Taylor is produced by Sonya Renee Taylor, edited by Dr. Shannon Weber. Our opening music is Joy and Grief by Sean and Abigail Bingson of the Bingsons. Our closing song is Dying by the Bingsons. Join us in the ritual of collecting evidence by rating, commenting, and subscribing to Mundane Miracles on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can get early access to episodes and support our radical love work by becoming a member on Patreon at patreon.com/Sonya Renee Taylor. That's patreon.com/Sonya Renee Taylor.